The Sony WF-1000XM4. Yes, it's a somewhat convoluted name, and at £250 or $279, Sony's newest true wireless earbuds certainly aren't cheap. But do they have what it takes to challenge the likes of the AirPods Pro in the premium noise-cancelling wireless Bluetooth earbud market? Let's take a look. Hey audio nerds, and welcome back to the channel, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do take a second to hit that little red button below. It's really tempting, isn't it? Okay, so I'm excited to do this review because let's face it, the range of great sounding Bluetooth audiophile earbuds is at present pretty limited. Many people, including me, would in fact argue that there's no such thing as an audiophile Bluetooth headset, but there's no denying their convenience whilst you're on the move, so it's good to have options. Now, Sony has carved out a niche in the market with its previous Bluetooth offerings, and it's just released its latest WF-1000XM4 or M4 earbuds. I'm just going to call them the XM4s from now on, if that's okay with you. And they are not to be confused with the similarly named WH-1000XM4s, which are over-the-ear headphones. Rather confusingly though, despite being called the Mark IVs, these are in fact the third model of Bluetooth earbuds that Sony has released in this series. I don't think we got an XM2. Never mind though, the XM4s boast some big improvements over the well-received predecessors, the XM3s, and we're going to take an in-depth look at them. So let's kick off with the design, and I much prefer the design of both the case and the earbuds themselves over the XM3s. The case, as you can see, is much smaller compared to the tank that housed the XM3s. It's still much chunkier than rivals like the AirPods Pros, but it definitely now fits into my jeans change pocket. It feels reasonably solid with quite a nice hinge mechanism, although it's not quite on a par with Apple's offerings. The case charges either at the back here through USB-C, or it also charges wirelessly with Qi charging. The earbuds themselves, they're much more compact than previous offerings from Sony. They're much lighter too. There's a nice tactile, touch-sensitive pad on the side in order for you to control the various options on the earbuds themselves. I like the copper accents. I think it looks quite subtle and classy. Inside the box, apart from the interminable load of instructions in lots of foreign languages, you only get two spare pairs of ear tips. You get the small ones and the large ones, along with the USB-A to USB-C charging cable, so not a lot to get excited about there, although the box is made of recyclable material, which is a nice little nod to the environment, I guess. As far as the ear tips themselves go, they are not silicone anymore. They are this kind of squeezy foam, a bit like the Comply tips. This gives better passive noise cancellation as well as better bass response. And don't worry, we'll go into the sound in detail in a minute. Fit-wise, I found them to be quite comfy. They stayed in my ears with minimal displacement even when I was walking. The fact that they're now IPX4 rated means that they can withstand a little bit of light rain or even gross ear sweat if you're working out without completely giving up the ghost. I wouldn't choose them, however, as workout earbuds over the AirPods Pros, as they're still a little bit bulkier and heavier, and I wasn't convinced that they'd stay in as well when I'm out running. I would hate to see one of these fall out of my ears and down the nearest gutter. If you don't like foam ear tips, you can get some standard silicone aftermarket ear tips because they've got standard Sony-sized nozzle or spout, whatever you choose to call it. Okay, so pairing them up with your smartphone is very easy. If you have an Android phone, you literally just flip the lid open and they support fast pairing, which means that they pop up on your phone's display just like AirPods do with an iPhone. If you have an iPhone or another device that doesn't support that function, you have to press both earbuds whilst they're in your ear for several seconds. Don't do that, by the way, in public, because it'll look like you're having a major existential crisis. I found the Bluetooth connection to be strong and stable, even when the phone was buried in a deep pocket or a backpack, and there were no audio skips or glitches in my experience. In terms of codecs, you get AAC support, but on Android you also can get the option of LDAC, which is a slightly higher, more data-intensive codec, although it's definitely not totally lossless, don't be fooled. On the iPhone, of course, you just get AAC. There's no aptX support on either platform. But certainly, even without that, the audio sync when watching movies was absolutely spot on. Now, if you want to get the most of these XM4s, you definitely need to go and download the dedicated Sony headphone app, which gives you loads of options to control these buds, and they have a bewildering array of features. There's an ambient mode, which promises to alter the amount of ambient sound getting through depending on where you are, as well as automatic voice recognition, which will put them into transparency mode if they detect you are talking. I tend not to use this though, as I'm still old-fashioned. I think it's quite rude to talk to someone whilst wearing earbuds. The more useful functions include control of the noise cancellation effect, the ability to assign different functions to the touch controls, and of course software updates, although be warned, these take ages to accomplish. There's also a nice display of the battery status in the app and also the battery status of the case. You can also set handy options like auto pausing the music when you take a bud out, and also trigger an auto power saving mode. Perhaps the biggest reason to use the app though is because it offers you quite a large degree of control over the sound profile. You get a graphic equalizer and control over the degree of bass boost, which we'll come back to. One big disappointment for me though is that you can't pair these with more than one device at a time, for example your laptop and your phone, which you could do on the WH-XM4s, but you can't do it on these. I wonder why. However, switching between previously paired devices is pretty quick and fairly easy. As for that battery life, it's absolutely brilliant. Sony says you'll get 8 hours of battery life on these in noise cancelling mode, and 12 hours if you turn noise cancelling off. And certainly I found the battery life to be so much better than my AirPods Pros. I had to charge these far less frequently. The case in addition gives you a total of 24 to 36 hours of listening time, which I think is really amazing. Well done Sony, good job. But okay, on to the most important bit for my viewers anyway. How do they actually sound? I did like the XM3s, although I did find their bass to be a little bit sludgy with slightly piercing highs to compensate. So I'm pleased to report that these are without doubt the finest sounding true wireless earbuds that I personally have tried, certainly in terms of tonality. So once again, there is much more bass presence than the likes of the AirPods Pros, but this time round it's much more controlled and it doesn't bleed into the lower mids. You can easily dial it down too with the equalizer in the app if it's too much. So even bass heavy EDM tracks such as, for example, Bicep's new album, sound lively rather than shambolic. There's a really good snap and timing to the upper bass frequencies, and I really enjoyed the mids presentation too. It's smooth and even with really decent separation between instruments and vocals. The vocals are not as full as on wired alternatives such as the Moondrop Starfields, which I think are absolute mid-range monsters, but they still have plenty of body and warmth. I really enjoyed just listening to a Spotify radio station based on female vocalists such as Griff using these earbuds. The vocals sounded really natural, not shrill, and overall really smooth and enjoyable. The treble is really slightly boosted to my ears anyway, but it's not harsh and it's not fatiguing, and there is a degree of detail and sparkle. Overall, I'd describe the sound as fairly neutral with a bit of added bass heft and warmth, and I really like it. I prefer the sound to that of the AirPods Pros, for example, which sound really thin in comparison. The sound stage is better than the AirPods Pros, but not quite as good as the Samsung Buds Pro, which to my mind are still the widest sounding true wireless earbuds. The other commendable feature is that the noise floor of these is really low. You get very little of that background amp hiss commonly associated with Bluetooth earbuds. Let's talk about the noise cancellation mode, which I'm happy to confirm is excellent. It's easily on par, if not a little bit better than the AirPods Pros. But the transparency mode is rubbish. I just take them out if I want to hear what's going on around me. Microphone quality is hugely improved over the XM3s, with both incoming and outgoing audio being clearly audible. You can summon voice assistants on Android. Either Google's or Amazon's offerings are supported just by saying the magic word, if you enjoy yelling commands at nebulous voice assistants, that is. If you want to summon Apple's voice assistant, you will need to assign a touch control to one of the earbuds to do that. One weird quirk is that if on Android you activate the voice activated assistant control Does that make sense? You could only use one of the earbuds on its own, as the other one becomes a slave device. I can't remember which is which. However, if you disable the voice assistant summoning feature, then you can use either bud on its own. There's no master-slave relationship there. I find that a bit weird, actually. I'm not quite sure why they've done that. So overall, are these the new kings of the true wireless noise-cancelling earbuds? Well, it depends what you're after and what device you're using. If you're using an Android phone, I would say these are by far the best device you can buy, albeit at quite a hefty cost. However, if you have an Apple device, it's a little bit more complicated. Now, if your main purpose is listening to music, then I think these are the best sounding earbuds you can get, much better sounding than the AirPods Pros. However, if you are using them also for video conferencing and phone calling, and you have multiple Apple devices and want to switch between them all, then there's no doubt that the AirPods offer an ecosystem advantage that these just don't. Those are my thoughts, guys. Watch out for another video where I'll be putting them up against the AirPods and the Samsung Buds Pro in more detail, but that's all for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you very soon.